TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday. One more time around. It's Friday again, and we're going to go right on in and do our little thing today. Got everything set here today. We're ready to go. Today, it's a special day, not only because it's Friday, but because today we're going to talk about some females who should not be forgotten. Because females, everybody has a mother. We all have a mother. What do they say? How's the saying go? Mama's baby, daddy's maybe. Right. Everybody knows who their mama is. Even if you don't know who your daddy is, you at least know who your mama is. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're going to know who your mama is. So there's a few exceptions, but we're not going to go into that. So we want to give thanks to all the females out there today. We want to give thanks to all the mothers, the mamas and the grandmas and the aunties and the sisters. We want to give thanks to all those females out there today. And the first female that we want to make sure to recognize is one of my former teachers, mentors, sister, doctor, actually, Shirla McLean. And Shirla McLean was a teacher in the Akron Public Schools. So she was working with some of the similar situations to what I've been working in the Akron Public Schools. She also was a professor at Kent State, and she was a professor at Walsh College. But Shirla McLean is known for having written the history of Black people in Akron. So she is Akron's Dean of Black History. Dean of Black History. That's how she gets that title, Dean of Black History. So, very great woman, not to be forgotten. We always want to remember her, give thanks to her. And she got me started on some other projects, in particular, the one I've been working on for the last 10 years plus, which is Ohio's Black Athletes. Some of you have seen this book before. Some of you have seen the many posters that come out of this book, or maybe your children have colored one of these posters. And it's a whole project I've been working on, and the last part of that project is the video piece. And I'm still working on that part, but I'm honing my skills by bringing you these daily live streams. And then the second person we want to remember, you know what? I'm going to save her for a little bit later. We're going to talk about her in a minute. I got another female over here. Actually, we got 2 or 3 females we're going to feature today. Okay, so I do not have a proverb for today. Instead of a proverb, today I've got a poem. And this poem is by a female, and her name is Nikki Giovanni. Some of you may have heard of her. She's a well-known author and writer, poetess, okay? So known internationally all over the world, Nikki Giovanni. And the title of this book, as you can see, is Ego Tripping. Ego Tripping. And so when she came here to Akron, I got a chance to see her the last time she was here. Well, she was here fairly recently, and I was able to see her. I don't know if it was the last time before, but I saw her. And she said, when she spoke about this poem, because this is pretty much her most famous poem, when she spoke about this poem, she said she wrote this poem because the boys had all kinds of ways of boosting their ego, all kinds of things that they like to say to boost their ego. And she wanted to have something for the girls to say about themselves to boost their ego too. And that's hence the title, Ego Tripping. So here we go. I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. So, Ego Tripping, Nikki Giovanni's masterpiece. Okay, Nikki Giovanni. So we want to remember all these women. And now, just in case y'all think that our black women are not on some other kind of level like that, we're just going to profile one more woman. Now, I already talked about Shirley MacLaine. Okay, I brought her in with her intellectual prowess, etc. But I want to bring in someone else who we're just as proud of, but whose story still has yet to be fleshed out. I'm still working on her story. Her story has been obscured. It's been the mist of time have clouded our vision of this woman's story, Dorothy Darby. Now, when Nikki Giovanni in her poem said, I am bad, she had to be talking about Dorothy Darby, because here is an image that I drew of Dorothy Darby back in the day. I mean, way, 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 way back in the day. This picture is from like the 1930s. And you see she's standing in front of an airplane here. You notice this part here? That's what we call the cockpit. That's where the person sits at. It's a two-person plane. So there's one person sits here, then the co-pilot sits here. The pilot sits up here in the front. The co-pilot's looking at the map and comparing it to the ground. The pilot is busy making turns left and right, et cetera, et cetera. They don't have time to sit up and be reading no map. That's why you always have a pilot and a co-pilot. Okay, this is in the very beginning of the early days of manned air flight. And so one of the things, the tools that you wanted to be able to know how to use if you were going to fly a plane that would be very helpful to you is right here on her derriere. We call that the parachute. Right down there on the derriere, you see her parachute. Now, Dorothy Darby, every year, she came after Bessie Coleman. So Bessie Coleman is the most famous black pilot, female pilot, that most of us are familiar with or could be familiar with. But Dorothy Darby also wanted to be a pilot. She came out of Cleveland. She's one of our own from right here in Northeast Ohio. We can claim her. She was studying, she had gone to the Curtis Wright School of Aeronautics in Chicago to learn how to fly planes. Because remember the story of Bessie Coleman, she wasn't able to go to any school in the United States. She had to go all the way to France in order to get trained, because nobody here was going to train her. And we're talking about white men. We're not going to train no black woman how to fly no plane, period. So her, as well as some of the earlier black male pilots, they also went to France to learn how to fly. So Dorothy Darby was able to, by that time, things had opened up by the 1930s. She could go to school and study at Curtis Wright, but that was in Chicago. She was living either in Cleveland or she was living in Detroit. And so in order to earn money, because you're talking about now during the Depression era, in order to earn money to go to school, she had to come up with a plan. And so her plan was to jump out of airplanes. So when I say jump out, remember that she's sitting here in this cockpit over here. She's going to jump out of that plane. Now, when she goes to jump out the plane, it's obvious she's only half in the plane from the get-go. Okay, you just barely got a little window screen here to keep the bugs from mashing all up against you, going into your eyes. So that's why she's got the goggles on, and then this is her helmet. That's no more than some shoe leather on her head in order to protect her in the case that she gets ejected violently from the airplane. So that's all you had as a helmet. So now with Bessie Coleman's plane, apparently the mechanic, from the story I know, the mechanic left a tool inside the engine, and that's called throwing a wrench in the works. When a wrench gets caught up in the works, your engine can freeze up on you, and there's no way to get it unfrozen. And that's what happened to Bessie Coleman. Her plane went down, and I don't know, maybe she didn't have a parachute. Maybe she wasn't wearing a parachute. Maybe she hadn't learned how to jump out of planes. So Dorothy Darby turned that into her lesson and said, okay, one of the things she's going to do to go to school, to earn the money to go to school, is go around the country jumping out of planes. So she was one of the first Black people, for certainly the first Black woman, to go jumping out of airplanes and being paid for it. So she was a professional parachute jumper. That's what she did. So I've got a article from the Cleveland Plain Dealer where she jumps out of an airplane at 22,000 feet in the air into Lake Erie. So now that requires an additional skill set, because first of all, you need to be able to swim. You need to be familiar with a swimming pool, with water, how to swim, technique. And then secondly, you need to also be familiar with how the heck what are you going to do with that parachute when you land in that water with that parachute, because it's going to come right down on top of you and cover you where you can't see, and it's going to be difficult to breathe. So you got a number of problems there. When she first did it, I think she broke both her ankles. I think she either broke one or two of her ankles. Yeah, I know for sure one. She may have broken both ankles. I just can't remember if it was one or two. When she did this jump, because when you hit that water looks nice and soft and everything, but it's not. It's hard like concrete. It has what's the word to it? Substance to it. So it's like jumping out of an airplane onto the ground almost. And if you don't do it the right way, you can hurt yourself. And that's what happened to her. But she was able to be recovered. They got her into a boat. They got her back to shore. She survived, and she kept on jumping out of airplanes. When Joe Louis was fighting Max Schmeling, that big fight that he had that went worldwide, because you had a Black man fighting against a German during the time of the Nazis, and he beat the German, Dorothy Darby jumped out of an airplane into Joe Louis's boxing camp to encourage Joe to win that fight. And I believe she was carrying letters with her, that fan mail, that kind of thing, maybe donations. I'm not sure what else she, went along with that, but you can imagine all of that happened along, as part of the story. So Dorothy Darby, you talking about bad. See, because she was back in the day when men like to keep their women in the house, literally barefoot and pregnant. I mean, that was just like the thing. Your woman barefoot, pregnant, you on your job. Your woman ain't barefoot and pregnant, something ain't right. Your woman's doing what? She jumping out of airplanes. Well, who's cooking your dinner? Who's cooking your breakfast? Who's cooking your lunch? Who's taking care of the children? See what I'm saying? All those questions would come up because there was the child care system. There was no nursery school. There was no, 3-year-olds going off. We didn't have all that back then. These women were on their own. If they had children, they were going to be taken care of. Maybe grandma might be around to help out. Maybe. That'd be about it. If grandma can get away from her house, because she got her own house to take care of. Or if grandma's living with the family, maybe grandma could have been living with the family. I don't know. We got to flesh out her story. So in the meantime, word for the day: perseverance, perspicacity, and downright fearlessness. So as we go into the weekend, I want you to take your weekend and turn it all around And instead of going into the weekend this time, TGIF, we're thinking, we think it's great that it's Friday, but at the same time, we're going to turn this weekend thing into the strong end. So instead of making this your weekend, make this your strong end. You can't watch those ball games. So instead of watching the ball game, go ahead and think of something you can do for self. Do something for self. Think for yourself, do for self, make your own destiny. You be the master of your destiny. So those are the words we're going to leave you with as we go into we go through Friday. Remember, this is noon and 9. Subscribe below if you're on YouTube, and if you're seeing this on Facebook, make sure to like and share. Show somebody that you care. Be willing to share. Don't just sit there copping a stare without being willing to share. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with everybody that you know. Share it even with the people that you don't even like. Share it with them too. Maybe it'll inspire them to be a better person, so both of y'all can grin from your ear to your chin. This is Doc Akh signing out. See y'all tonight at 9 o'clock. Remember, we're doing it noon and 9. Noon, inspirational for the adults. 9 o'clock, we do story time for the children. Help them go into the night so they can take flight, because they're the next generation. Peace out now.